right, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for the Our Stories program today. This program is called Playtime, History and Current Trends in Chandler Playgrounds and Park Design. And we have Andy Bass and Mickey Olin who will be speaking today. We're glad to have you here for the Our Stories program. Our Stories is a program that is put on by the Chandler Museum and the Chandler Library. And it has support from the Chandler Historical Society and the Friends of the Library. And my name is Tiffany Egnor. I'm here from the Chandler Museum as the Education Coordinator, and we're excited to have you here today. We are doing this presentation this morning to coordinate with a current traveling exhibition that is on view at the Chandler Museum titled Once Upon a Playground. And this exhibit covers the history of playgrounds in the United States from the 1920s through the 1970s. It is a traveling exhibit on view, and it will be up through May 25th. We'd love to have you stop by the museum to see this exhibition. It includes a variety of current photographs of vintage playground equipment throughout the country, as well as advertisements and ephemera and catalogs that go with that equipment throughout the years from the Library of Congress's collection. So it's a super fun exhibit. There's a lot of imagery in that exhibition that, you think back on your childhood and the playgrounds that you may have used, and there's a lot of fun memories in that exhibit. So it will be on view again April 6th through May 25th. Today we're going to be talking about the history of Parks and Rec and the history of Chandler's playground design and park design, and also the current trends and kind of upcoming trends that you might see in some of the Chandler playgrounds. Andy Bass will be our first speaker, and he is the Director of Community Services for the City of Chandler. He's been in that position since 2019, and his career in Parks and Recreation has taken him from Utah to Texas to Nevada and Colorado. He leads a team here that oversees parks and park maintenance, pools, community centers, recreation programs, therapeutic recreation, school vacation break activities, urban forestry, public art, cultural sponsorships, and special events. Andy received his Bachelor of Science in Exercise Physiology from the University of Utah and a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Colorado. He is passionate about promoting healthy lifestyles, experiencing nature, and strengthening family relationships in the community. Andy and his wife, Adrienne, enjoy outdoor sports and hobbies, including snow skiing, kayaking, golfing, hiking, and camping. And on the weekend, you can find them at one of the many sporting events that their children participate in. We will turn the time over to Andy. As we do that, if you have questions throughout this program, you can type those into the chat box. We'll also open up at the end for questions and answers. And I think I forgot to mention that we are recording this talk, so the recording will be available after as well. All right, so I'll turn it over to you, Andy.
All right, thank you, Tiffany. Appreciate the opportunity to be here with Mickey, as well as just like to mention, we also have Jeff Larson, who is our parks manager. I think he's in attendance. I think I saw his name, so excited to have him as well, and he certainly has some great insights through his career. Appreciate the eulogy. That was a very long bio, so but I appreciate that. So I'm here to talk about, real brief, just a little bit of the history of parks and recreation, because in my mind they really do go together, and their purposes do kind of coincide. So to start with, I just wanted to share a little bit about the history of public recreation. Both parks and recreation both started at the early 1900s. And so really when we look at recreation, the whole purpose was really, we had a bunch of kids, mostly males, so it was all of us males in the audience's fault. We were out there, causing crime, causing trouble, and people were kind of getting sick of it. They're like, we gotta solve this problem. The picture on the right is a great picture. It's from New York City, again, in the early 1900s. And it's a picture of a courtroom. And if you look closely, you'll see that it's just full of kids. I don't know how many kids. It's probably got 100 or so more kids standing there. And in the caption, it says, all of these children were arrested in a single day for playing in the street. And so, these hardened criminals were out playing in the street. And the caption below says, will you help build playgrounds? And so really that's why you start to see kind of this public push to find ways to engage youth in the community in positive ways, to teach them how to be civil with each other, and also how to have some civic responsibility, how to be proud of where they live and have some buy-in into their community. The quote on the left is from 1912. It was in the Chicago Tribune from this Mrs. Bowen. And what she said was, recreation is the antitoxin of delinquency. And the sooner it is administered, the milder will be the disease and the better it will be for all children. And I think if you try to, go why they started and you look at what we have going on today throughout the world, I think we can make a case that recreation and having public recreation programs and spaces, the need is still there, right? The sooner we can get people involved with the community, it's better for all of them, whether it's their mental, physical, social health, it includes all of that. If we go to our next slide, we'll talk about a little bit about parks, because parks is really interesting. It started back kind of in the early 1900s, at least in this country. And the first parks that you saw being built were actually being built next to factories in these large urban cities. And they were being built by the factory owners because they wanted to provide a place where their workers could go on their break during work, where they could get out of the factory, where it would be kind of fresh and clean air and feel a little bit of nature. And what these business owners were really, really smart is what they soon learned is that as they provided these breaks and these green, nice spaces, that their workers came back rejuvenated and they actually worked harder, and the outcome of their business was better because they would provide these fresh, clean air places for the workers to be. Soon, the large cities started to understand that if they built a place that was attractive, that was a draw for people to come to, that they could help boost their local economy, and you actually have a little bit of tourism go. If you go to any major city in the country, they all have a major downtown city park, a central park, if you will. Obviously New York City has a very famous one, but Denver, Chicago, Philadelphia, they have these big park spaces that people would come to in the nights, on the weekends, and people would go and spend their money, stay in hotels, go out to eat, and it became kind of a boon for these cities. And I also make the case that parks are very special, a critical place in our community, especially what is being talked about throughout our country right now, is parks are the one place where you will actually see equal access to all community members. And I would argue it's one of the few, if not the only place where this occurs. If you go to a park, you might see someone who is experiencing homelessness to someone who is a millionaire. You're going to find all the races represented, all social economic classes, ethnic groups. They all come together, and it's truly a great melting pot for the entire community. And again, it's open to all. And that's super critical aspect to the community. Obviously, we know as working in parks, the number one activity that occurs within a park, and this is probably worldwide, is walking. There is a huge public benefit of having parks and a park system, a trail system within your community. Obviously, it provides a place for people to be healthy, to move and to exercise. But I think we all understand also that if your house is near a park, typically your property value and the price for your home is typically higher because you're just near that amenity. From a government perspective, that's great because that's a way to increase your property tax base, and also for the homeowner because it helps protect their investment. If we go to the next slide, and I'll just finish this up. This is from William Taft, who was President of the United States. And this is back in 1909. And again, this is the President of the United States. I keep thinking, okay, Biden's going to come through. He's going to give us a similar quote. But this is what he said. President Taft said, "I do not know of anything which will contribute more to the strength and morality of that generation of boys and girls compelled to remain part of an urban populations in this country than the institutions in their cities of playgrounds." Again, I go back to that's the President of the United States saying we need to build playgrounds because the success of our communities and our children depend on us building these parks. I think all of us on this call, obviously, we have an interest in parks. We enjoy them, I assume. But the truth is, all of us probably grew up in a city that had parks or maybe rec centers, had outdoor pools. And so sometimes it's easy for us to not realize how important they are because it's all we've ever known. And so that's why it's important to look back at the history, because it allows us to look and to understand why it was there, why it started, and what the community was like without them. And if we can do that, then we can see how essential it is to have parks within our community. And with that, I think it's time I turn it over to Mickey for his part of it. And we'll get him loaded up here.
All right. Yeah. While Mickey is doing that, I'll go ahead and introduce our second speaker here. So thank you so much, Andy Bass, for kind of setting the stage of the development of parks in our nation and the importance that our leaders saw for those parks and playgrounds to provide a space for people. So Mickey Olin will be our next speaker here. Mickey has been with the city of Chandler for 26 years. That's impressive, Mickey. In his current position as Community Services Planning Manager, he's responsible for the design, development, and renovation of Chandler parks. Prior to working for the City of Chandler Community Services, Mickey held similar positions in the cities of Plano and Denton in Texas. Mickey graduated from Texas Tech University with a Bachelor of Landscape Architecture degree. In addition, he is a member of the Arizona Parks and Recreation Association and the National Recreation and Parks Association. All right, Mickey, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, welcome everybody. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Tiffany, for inviting us here this morning. As Andy said, parks play a big role in the development of any city and the need for play. Obviously, you need a place for that to happen, which is our parks, our municipal parks. So what I would like to do this morning is just kind of give you a brief overview of Chandler's park system. Now, I'm a little biased here, but I feel our park system is second to none. And I know there's a couple people on the call that will probably back me on that, but a lot of people have done, had a lot of hard work in developing this park system over the years. And I just thought it'd be a good idea just to kind of show you what our park system and what we go through in developing our parks. The city is about 65 square miles in size, and we have a population of about 272,000 people right now. Originally founded by Dr. A.J. Chandler Park. Chandler's first park bears his name, is in downtown Chandler. I'm sure most of you have seen that one. We currently have 67 parks, developed parks throughout the city, which totals about 1,270 acres. When I started with the city about 26 years ago, we had 32 parks, which totaled just over 300 acres. I've been very lucky to see the system grow over the years, and I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Dave McDowell. He's on this call as well. He had a big impact and influence on the development of our park system as well. So I appreciate everything he has done over the years and continues to do. We have about 3 more parks to develop, which will bring the total number of parks in Chandler to 70, and we'll top out just over 1,500 acres in the system. Our parks fall into 4 different park classifications. We have neighborhood parks, community parks, regional parks, and special use parks. The first type of park I want to talk about a little bit is neighborhood parks. We have 51 of these located throughout the city. They're identified by the red areas on the map. This type of park is often referred to as the backbone of our park system. In the city of Chandler, we've had a long-standing goal to develop, where possible, one 10-acre neighborhood park per square mile of residential development. And as you can see from the map, I feel like we've done an excellent job over the years making sure that the recreational needs in the city are covered. These parks are typically 5 to 15 acres in size, and they're meant to serve the residents in that square mile, that particular square mile. We've also tried to locate these parks as close to the center of the square mile as possible to promote easy access. The parks are designed so that you can walk to them or ride your bike. Our ultimate goal is to have parks within a 10-minute walking distance from individuals. Some of the amenities that you'll find in our neighborhood parks are shaded playgrounds, lighted pathways, open space turf, ramadas, lighted basketball courts, lighted sand volleyball courts, couple new things, cornhole, horseshoes. You'll find all those amenities within this type of park. As Andy alluded to earlier, when we have public meetings, there's 3 things that come up consistently that people want in their parks, and that's shaded playgrounds, lighted pathways, and open space turf. As you can imagine, over the past 10 years or so, we've been concentrating on the southeast part of the Chandler to keep up with the growth with our neighborhood parks. We have one more neighborhood park to develop, which is located in the square mile in the blue section here on the map, and that's Homestead North Park. It's located on Fry and Cooper. It'll be about 7.5 acres in size. We were very fortunate this past year to receive a land, water, and conservation grant from the Arizona State Parks in the amount of $750,000 that will go towards the construction of this park. Unfortunately, due to COVID and some other things that have kind of slowed the approval process for the grant down, we're hoping that this park will be under construction this summer with completion this fall. The next type of park that we have is community parks. We have 9 of those located through the city, which are indicated in red on the map. Community parks are intended to be accessible to multiple neighborhoods and serve a broader purpose than our neighborhood parks. They're typically 25 to 100 acres in size. The service area is approximately 2 to 3 mile radius. As you can see on the map, we have 2 more to develop. Those are in the yellow circles, Lantana Ranch Park Site and Mesquite Groves Park Site. So these are the more active parks. What you'll find, larger playgrounds, splash pads, dog parks, skate parks, bike parks. You'll have large group ramadas, restrooms, parking, athletic fields. These parks are designed to accommodate larger groups of people, more intense recreation. There's 2 of our community parks, Desert Breeze and Veterans Oasis, that have lakes that we utilize as a part of the Arizona Game and Fish community fishing program. This is a hugely popular program, and it operates under the premise that if people can't get out of town to fish, we'll bring fish into town for the people. So you can imagine this is a very popular amenity at these 2 parks. Just want to talk about Nozomi Park a little bit here. It's one of our community parks. It was built back in 2004. It's on the far west side of town. It's 20 acres in size. And actually, we leased this property from the Tempe Union School District for park purposes. It has a dog park, playground, aquatic center, and lighted ball fields. What's kind of unique about this park is its name. The name Nozomi was submitted by a Chandler resident. And what I thought you might find interesting is the word Nozomi in Japanese means hope. And actually there's a Nozomi or a peace park in Nagasaki, Japan. And this park also has, is a part of History in Our Backyard, the History in Our Backyard program, where there are several parks within our park system that have kiosks located in them, and through the museum group, provide information about the history of that particular area or the people that used to live in the area. So it's a pretty neat program that they promote and support. Regional parks, we have one regional park, which is Tumbleweed Park. These parks are usually 70 plus acres in size. They offer recreational opportunities to the entire city, active sports facilities, festival areas, recreation centers are some examples. Tumbleweed Park, which is on the southwest corner of McQueen and Germain, is just over 200 acres in size. The first phase of the park was the tennis center down there, and it was constructed in 1995. Since then, approximately 165 acres of the 200 acres have been developed, and that's been over 6 to 7 phases. So it's been a long process. We still have about 35 acres to develop at this park. If any of you have been down there, you know kind of what's down there, what the park has, reservable ramadas. It's got the Tumbleweed Recreation Center, the tennis center, unique amenity, the Arizona Railway Museum, Tumbleweed Ranch, which is a neat area to visit, lighted multi-use fields, sand volleyball courts. We recently installed bocce ball courts at this park. Playtopia Playground, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And this park hosts, with its size, this park hosts a number of special events, including the annual Ostrich Festival and 4th of July celebration. Last summer, we completed, one of the projects we completed at this park was the construction of 4 lighted multi-use fields. So you have to use your imagination a little bit. Everything that's dirt here is now grass and is being enjoyed by the public. So very popular amenity for the park. Probably along with Desert Breeze, Tumbleweed, between Tumbleweed and Desert Breeze, these are our 2 most popular parks. Our final type of park is special use parks. We have 6 special use parks in our park system. These parks are designed with more specialized or dedicated use in mind. These may include biking, public art, golf, archery, or even a place where you can go fly RC model airplanes. An example of a special use park is this Paseo Vista Recreation Area. This 62-acre site is on the northwest corner of Ocotillo and McQueen Roads. It was completed in 2009. And it actually sits on top of a former landfill. Well, it's a closed landfill. I guess it's never a former landfill. It's always going to be a landfill, but it's closed now. It was closed in 2005. The goal of the project was to turn the closed landfill into a usable park with unique recreational opportunities that you wouldn't find in other parks. As you can imagine, this park had a lot of federal regulations dictating what could and could not be developed on the site, since we were developing on top of a landfill. all the water that hits the site has to drain. You can't have any standing water. What they're trying to avoid is any water penetrating into the trash below. The closed landfill, when it was closed, they put a cap on the landfill to protect the trash. So that limited us in the amount of vegetation we could put out there because we didn't want the roots penetrating that cap. If you do visit this park, you'll notice the lack of paved parking or paved trails. That's due to the potential settling. So what you'll see is just about all the surfaces out there are soft surfaces. And since it was a former landfill, the theme of the park was based on recycling. And if you visit the park, you'll notice a wall adjacent to the playground, which is kind of identified or shown in the bottom middle picture here. And what we tried to do is make that wall look like a cross section of what you might find in the landfill if you were to dig that up. So you'll see things as neat things like a record player or a landline phone line, a lot of things that kids nowadays didn't know we used to have, I guess, The amenities found in this park, we have parking lots, dog park, ramadas, playground, restrooms, as I mentioned, soft surface walking trails. There's a disc golf course here. And the really unique item here is an archery range. And this park is pretty well located central to in the middle of Chandler. And I think it's pretty neat that you can actually go shoot archery right in the middle of our town. One thing that our city takes a lot of pride in, and our department is no different, is our public meeting process. Before any park is developed or renovated, we developed concept plans based on inputs we received from the residents. We will have as many public meetings as it takes to get the input from residents on what they would like to see in their park. After all, this isn't my park, it's the residents' park. So I want to make sure that they are happy and their recreational needs are being met. Ultimately, our goal is to have at the ribbon cutting, the park look just like what it does when we develop the concept plan. And for the most part, that's what happens. A lot of these concept plans on the screen, you can go out there today and the park looks exactly like that. And it's the public meeting effort that we go through that continues to enhance the community trust that we have and that's been developed over the years. Getting the residents involved in the decision-making process for their park is the key to designing and constructing a successful park. We feel the public meeting process is the first step in building a sense of pride and ownership from the residents towards their park. So what we're trying to do through this public meeting process of getting people involved is have the pictures on the right when we have ribbon cuttings, everybody's excited. What we're trying to avoid are items like this, and we feel like getting the people involved in their park, in their community, will help reduce vandalism that we see in our parks. With regards to playgrounds, we currently have 59 municipal playgrounds located throughout the city. Those are located with the red dots on the map. As you can imagine, this is one of the most requested and popular amenities found within our parks. Our playgrounds typically serve children ages 3 to 12. And with the exception of one playground, all of our playgrounds are shaded. When we add and or renovate a playground, we try to stay focused on sustainable and inclusive ways to encourage imagination and play while increasing physical strength and fitness. Ultimately, we want our playgrounds to be unique, fun, and a safe place for all. What I'd like to do is just kind of go over a couple of examples of a couple of unique playgrounds that we have within our park system. The first one is Playtopia. Playtopia is a 3.5 acre playground located within Tumbleweed Park. In addition to providing a great, unique play experience, the theme of the playground takes the visitors on a journey through Chandler. This unique playground focuses on Chandler's agricultural heritage. Every aspect of the playground area was designed and constructed in an effort to interpret Chandler's history. Not only does it give the kids a neat place to play, but it also allows them to learn about the city of Chandler. As the city of Chandler continues to reach build out, we felt it was important that we did not forget about the past of our great city. Playtopia is comprised of 3 imaginative zones: farmland, cityland, and critterland. Farmland plays homage to Chandler's agricultural roots and provides an ideal space for endless imaginative play. This space has multiple slides, bridges, climbing features, and a mini rock wall and distinct farmland themed playground equipment. Cityland, this is a neat area. It's Playtopia's urban themed landscape and is made up of small paved streets, street signs, small city vehicles, and even authentic lampposts you'd find in any big city. This area has various climbing and riding features along with a main slide structure. So what we tried to do is just make it look like a mini city. Critterland, this is take the kids back to the past, way back to the past, and it's ready for exploration. Fossil digs, rock climbs, a giant Gila monster, dinosaur eggs, and tortoise shells are just some of the features you'll find in this area. And in addition to these unique play areas, Playtopia also has traditional swings for all ages, benches, covered ramadas with picnic tables for parties and gatherings. Another park I'd like to just touch on real quick is Meadowbrook Park. It's located south of Queen Creek between Lindsay and Gilbert Roads. It's a 7.11 acre neighborhood park. It's adjacent to Haley Elementary. As I mentioned earlier, we try to make all of our parks unique. And when we started the design process of this park, we always do an evaluation of the surrounding communities. And what we found was located within the surrounding neighborhoods, there were 7 existing playgrounds. So we didn't feel like we needed to duplicate a traditional playground at this park. So instead of constructing a traditional playground, this park has our first fitness course for both adults and youth. It's an amenity that's gained popularity over the past couple of years, in part due to the TV show Ninja Warrior. This park was completed about 3 years ago, and like all of our parks, like I mentioned before, it's a direct result from the input that we received from our residents. Has open space turf, lighted walkways, ramada, sand volleyball court, horseshoes, and a basketball court. Here's a picture of the Ninja fitness course for youth and adult. The youth side is the blue and the adult side is the green. So essentially it's a fitness course with different obstacles that you can go through, time yourself on, and it's very challenging. I even find the youth side challenging for myself. So, but it also has been hugely popular. Here's a picture of the youth side. The obstacles are a little smaller, more appropriate for smaller kids. And then here's one for a picture of the adult side. So with that, I would just like to close and just let you know that I feel like I'm very appreciative to work in a city that places so much emphasis on quality of life items such as parks. And if anybody has any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you so much, Mickey. We really appreciate that rundown of the variety of parks in Chandler and the different spaces and locations, as well as the playgrounds that have been designed throughout those time frames, and the involvement from the community in that process. So if you have questions or comments, feel free to put those in the chat. We'll also have the opportunity to turn on mics so that if you'd like to hop on and ask a question, you can do that as well. Okay. And as was mentioned earlier, we do have Dave McDowell on this call, who was involved with Parks formerly, as well as Jeff Larson, our current Parks manager.
Could you repeat where the Ninja park is? The last park you talked about, where is it located?
It is south of Queen Creek and east of Gilbert.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question. I put it in the comments, but it didn't come out very well. I have a generator going in my background, so sorry about that. But Mickey, just a quick question for you. So if the exhibit is kind of looking at change over time in the idea of playgrounds and the types of things that they put out there for kids to play on, I know that has evolved over time. Can you talk a little bit about, just in general, in parks, what we see in Chandler? You might go to an older park, first things have been refreshed, but talk a little bit about the philosophy of what actually goes onto the playground and how that's changed over time since we started creating parks, in Chandler.
Yeah, thanks, Gene. I think there's a couple things. Obviously, materials over the years. Used to see wood structures in the past or the metal slides. That's all become plastic now or metal. But there's a couple things when we have public meetings that relate to playgrounds and the use of playgrounds in the surrounding area. One, we want to try to make sure that they're all inclusive to everybody and to all kids. We try to create a surface that people with disabilities can move around and utilize the playground. We also look at providing lower level amenities within our playgrounds that that can be used with people in wheelchairs, for example. The other thing that we've seen here recently comes from either the parents or the grandparents of the children using the park. Typically, you'll have a playground surrounded with benches or ramada. And one thing that we've seen requested over the past couple of years is, what is there for us to do while we're watching our kids or grandkids on a playground? And one of the things that's been requested is outdoor fitness equipment. Back in the day, it used to be the park courses, and those kind of ran their course. But now we have outdoor fitness equipment. Some of it is very similar that you'd find at a fitness center, indoor fitness center. But what we've done at a couple of our parks has located that type of equipment around the playground that would give the adults something to do But we're always open, always looking to improve on our playgrounds and our parks.
Hey, just to add to that, one thing that I think is pretty neat is you're starting to see play equipment where parents and kids can both be on it together and enjoy it, such as a swing. They now make swings where for a parent and a kid to sit opposite of each other and swing together. So I think there's some kind of cool things like that you're starting to see more and more be installed into playgrounds.
The other thing to maybe talk about, Mickey, is we might have folks that are in on this meeting that were raised in other parts of the country. And so some of the playground structures and the way you create the playgrounds have a lot to do with being in the desert, the intensity of the sun, the heat, that kind of thing. Can you talk a little bit about how that's also evolved over time?
Sure, Gene, and we probably take some of that for granted, right? Living out in the desert. And like I said, that has a lot to do with materials. I know back in the east part of the country, they use a lot of wood structures, that type of thing. That will not hold up here. But I think the main thing that we need in our part of the country is shade. And so, like I said, all but one of our playgrounds is shaded. And several years ago, council made that a priority and made sure that we had the funding available to fund all our playgrounds. So I think that's one of the more important things, so we can use our playgrounds year round.
We did have a comment in the chat that this was very interesting and a nice way to see a positive way of our Chandler tax dollars being used. So thank you for that description as you went through some of that. We also had a question that came up about plans and the timeline for a park near the municipal airport on Queen Creek and McQueen.
Sure, that would be just south of the airport, which is Lantana Ranch Park site. And so that's a larger park. It's about 50 acres in size. As a matter of fact, right now we are developing 8 acres of the park on the southern portion of the park. It'll serve as a neighborhood park. And it'll be, I'm really looking forward to the completion of that because it's focused and themed around the airport. So the playground will look like a mini airport, has a little air traffic control tower. So it'll be definitely a fun, whimsical way of playing there. So that will be done probably the end of this summer, that portion of the park.
I'll add in a question that I have, Mickey. I'm kind of curious, what is the conversations that happen between kind of bordering cities and towns? So, for example, I live on the border of Chandler and Gilbert, and next to the new Gilbert Regional Park. Are there conversations that happen to kind of coordinate where those parks are located and how they're going to serve, residents on both sides of the borders in the planning phases?
Yeah, I mean, as far as we're pretty. Our parks and Chandler's park system are pretty. They're all bought. They're all purchased. They're all we're pretty much set. We do have several parks on the border of Gilbert, and there's nothing that, obviously Chandler residents or Gilbert residents are going to use our parks and vice versa. We do have conversations with surrounding communities just to find out best practices. We're always trying to learn from each other. The newest playground is always the best playground, right? So Gilbert just built theirs at their regional parks. Fantastic. What are some learning lessons that we can derive from them? When we built Playtopia back in the day, that was the playground of the communities, and everybody kind of copied that. So we definitely talk. We tried, on those neighboring parks, we do need to look at amenities that are being serviced by both communities, so we don't duplicate, and we can try to maximize those parks.
Ellen had a comment that she was surprised that you didn't mention the train at Desert Breeze, and wondering, are there any others that have something like that? Maybe you can talk a little bit. How did the train at Desert Breeze come about? That's sort of interesting.
Boy, that was prior to my time. I'd have to ask Dave McDowell. He doesn't have a microphone because I'm sure he was very instrumental in bringing that to the city. That's the only place we have one that you can ride on like that. Obviously, we have the Arizona Train Museum down at Tumbleweed, but that's the real trains. But I know Gilbert has one, something similar. And I believe Phoenix has something similar, and Scottsdale as well. So it's definitely very popular. It's privately run. That's a contract that we support through the city. And it's very popular amenity.
I have another kind of history of development question, and that's kind of around the ideas in relation to what you find in the playground structure. So, for example, like there must be trends in relation to like what we're going to incorporate into the playground structures themselves, right, for the kids. So you'll see, like, you know, I have 2 5-year-olds. So what I've noticed, which I didn't really ever notice before in some of the parks, are some of the like almost like developmental or early literacy kind of stuff, right? Where it's like, go find the red apple, where's it at? You know, kind of a scavenger hunt thing, or things with letters and numbers, or things related to fine motor skills or whatever. So it's interesting how that's developed. I'm kind of curious about that as part of philosophy of what's actually put into playgrounds for those families.
Yeah, what we try to do, I mean, we challenge our designers and staff. I mean, I like to try to include an educational element within our parks and playgrounds. And like you mentioned, all the playground manufacturers offer different panels. It might be ABCs or tic-tac-toe or squares, circles, you know, building block type things. But they also offer musical panels as well, where you can play different musical notes, make different noises, and, you know, just challenge all the sensory areas. Rock climbing, you know, I mean, it's just not traditional playgrounds as well. We have in a couple of our parks, actual big boulders, like rock climbing walls, where takes the kids' imagination as well as they use that. So there's, you know, the playground manufacturers are doing a great job in coming up with different amenities, be it electronic, you know, just to keep the kids stimulated. A lot of kids nowadays are attached to their phones, right? So we're trying to get them off those, but that's what they're used to. So what can we incorporate in the playgrounds that will keep their interest as well?
Also, kind of going along with that question that you had, Jean, with the exhibit that we have, What's Upon a Playground, it really brings out how some of the themes and content that is included in the playgrounds over the years really reflect popular culture and what's going on during that time frame. So there are a couple of catalogs in the exhibit where you can look through, and they have, you know, different themed playgrounds. There's a storybook theme or the space age theme, and you know, those different structures, the rocket ship shaped playground structure, you know, was reflecting the excitement across the nation of the race to the moon. And so those themes and the topics that are included in those playgrounds really reflect what's going on nationwide.
And we used to have a couple of those rocket ships in our parks.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yes, you know, I think that Playtopia should make it into the history books for its unique design related to, you know, a heritage of an agricultural past. I just wanted to make a note that Dave McDowell mentioned that Desert Breeze was the first major park to be developed. And so they tried to do things that were requested by the community. And I think the idea of the train was one of those. So they found a vendor who was willing to develop and install the train at no cost to the city. And then they developed the lease agreement with them. And then I assume the same thing happened over in Gilbert. So that's kind of a neat thing where as part of that process of input from the community as well as, what's the trend in current playground development as well.
All right, are there any other questions for Andy or Mickey while we're here? Well, thank you everybody so much for joining us today. We did record this talk, and so we will make it available on the museum's website and the programs page. It'll also be available through the Chandler Library. Again, Once Upon a Playground is on view at the Chandler Museum through May 25th. And we are open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and on Sunday afternoons from 1 to 5 p.m. with free admission. So come and see the fun photos in that exhibit. I'm just going to turn it over to Jean here at the end to talk about the next Our Stories program, and then we will conclude. So thanks everybody for joining us today.
All right, thank you, Tiffany. The next Our Stories program will run on May 22nd, and we will be hearing from Kevin Schindler, who is at the Lowell Observatory. He's the historian at the Lowell Observatory, and he'll be talking about how the Lowell Observatory was actually founded. There was an expedition in 1894 through territorial Arizona to find a location to build the first observatory there to look at the sky, and eventually they discovered Pluto there. So it has a really interesting history for northern Arizona, and that's what we'll be looking at on May 22nd. That is on the calendar, and you can register for that. And we have another program coming in June as we continue the series into the summer. That will be looking at a unique story of a journalist in Arizona who kind of fought against anti-Chinese sentiment in the early 1900s. So it should be a good one as well. You can find those on the calendar, the library calendar. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us.